But when I came into the company, I was a really popular babyface eventually. Started as a heel, turned babyface. If you look at all the beach towels and 7-Eleven cups at the time, there's always 3 guys on it. You, me, and Rock. And I started realizing that, like, I'm the George Harrison of the Attitude Era. I'm super popular, I'm super over, but I'm in a band with the 2 most popular over characters possibly ever. It doesn't matter what George does. He's never going to top Lennon and McCartney, right? Yeah. No matter what I do as a babyface, I'll never top Rock and Austin. So what can I do? I'll turn heel. And that's where that whole started, pitching to turn heel on you and on Rock, to start working with you guys, because I knew I could never get past you guys or higher than you guys. You guys need someone to work with that can hold the microphone and go toe-to-toe with you. Because it wasn't easy to go toe-to-toe with you. It wasn't easy to go toe-to-toe with Rock. You guys were so good and had the crowd in the palm of your hand. You needed a good heel to be able to work with.
Oh, absolutely.
That could go on the mic with you as well.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I think we had some really good times with that.
Out of all your times in the business, Jesus Christ, how long have you been in the ring now?
27 years.
27 years.
October 2nd, 1990 was my debut. Yeah.
Heel or baby?
To give you the wishy-washy answer, honestly, heel. I've been a world champ 6 times, all of them as a heel. Never won it as a babyface. I think a lot of that's because of the George Harrison thing. But to me, I think it's a very rare character in the business that can portray a heel and a babyface at the same level. You know, you look at like Flair. When Flair he could never really play a babyface as good as he could as a heel. Same with Hulk. Hogan, he was okay heel, but as a babyface, it's Hulk. So, right?
Worldwide.
So to do both is a very hard skill, and I take Hannibal the fact that I can do both. I prefer heel, but I always say it's a lot easier to make somebody hate you than it is to make them like you. But once they start hating you, it's hard to keep them hating you. It's like the greatest heels of all time in movies. Darth Vader, Terminator, Hannibal Lecter, the Joker. All of those characters, Freddy Krueger, as the movies went on, they became the baby faces. I used to go to Nightmare on Elm Street just to watch Freddy Krueger kill the kids. He wasn't scary anymore. He was cool.
Yeah.
That's what happens. Terminator 2. Arnold's the baby face at this point because he's so good as a heel, you start liking him. That's the true key of wrestling. If you can be a heel and stay a heel, it's very hard to do.
What was your relationship like with Vince when you first came to the company? Y'all started talking about the Y2J thing and how that morphed into your communication process with him, because I'd been with Vince several times, and I've told this story many times. I apologize to my listeners for making me tell it again or making you listen to it again. Sitting in a Jeep, was going to do a gig, throw a belt off a bridge or do something, one of those shenanigans. At the time, Vince drove a Jeep Grand Cherokee. I'm riding shotgun, he's driving. We're at a gate, it's locked with the chain. No one's there to unlock the chain so we can go do the gig. And so we're just sitting there with our thumbs up our ass. It's weird. You know, because we don't know each other, man. You know, I just turned from the ringmaster to Stone Cold. Right. Now I'm starting to get a little momentum. And he's personally, and we're in his car to do this gig, just out of the blue. He looks over at me, dude, out of the blue. And he says, you know, Steve, as a promoter, you never want a talent to know what they're worth. Yeah, and I was like, what do you say? Mm-hmm. I didn't say nothing. I just sat there like, man, that was weird. Mm-hmm. He's a third-generation promoter, one of the smartest guys walking planet Earth. About 2 minutes later, he fires up the Jeep, runs through the gate, and we go do the gig. Just blast it straight up, blast the chain off. And so, like, man, that right there forever opened my eyes and my brain to, okay, here's what's up.
Yeah.
And then one time we're in the Garden again, and you know from working MSG, we're about to go do Monday Night Raw, and they're at the Barclays Center and the Manhattan Center. I don't know where I'm going to be, whatever's going to happen, it happens. But at MSG, that's a short entrance. And there's that blue curtain. Like you said, when Vince is there, he's watched that curtain, or maybe he's prowling around at the top. We don't know he's there. One time we was watching those matches go down, watching everybody go to the ring. I was probably working the main. And sold out house. Steve Blackman goes to the ring, gets a hell of a pop, pretty good pop. You know, and he was on his way. You know, Steve Blackman had really good worker, really good physique. Believable, just solid. Mm-hmm. But he's just never hit that next level. And boy, he got a pretty good pop. And I looked over at Vince and said, damn, pretty good pop. And Vince goes, yep, I really hope he can get over. And I'm like, there it is again. You know, Vince doesn't just wave a little wand over there, hit you with that pixie dust, that magic dust, and all of a sudden somebody's over. So How was your meaning? Vince don't just come at somebody. Just take Roman Reigns for instance. I mean, they're like just point at a guy and say you're over. It does not happen like that. So going back to I want to go back in history. Just let's start off with the old man. Then I want to peel it back a little bit to go through WCW and your territory days, because one of the things I've always respected about you. I caught you in ECW. I didn't see you when you was in Mexico or when you was up in Canada or all those other places. You got over in ECW. You got over in WCW. You got over in WWF. You got over everywhere you went.
Well, and I'll answer your question about Vince, but that's one of the reasons why I was able to get over in WWE, because I'm not sure if you went through it. I think you did. Obviously, you did with the Ringmaster. When we came from this other territory, other company, it doesn't matter what you've done anywhere else in the world until you go through the WWE curtain and Vince can see you. He doesn't care if you're Steve Austin, Triple H, Mick Foley, Chris Benoit, AJ over, if that makes sense, or Chris Jericho. I would say he probably doesn't watch any wrestling whatsoever. He might hear some names. I don't think he cares. Your job when you get to the WWE is to basically start from scratch and show Vince what you can do. And if you can get over with him, you'll get a chance to get over. Not the pixie dust, but you need to get over with Vince first to get the chance to really get over, if that makes sense. So with Vince, actually a wise man, a bald guy with a goatee who's sitting across from right now, you said to me, you really have to establish a relationship with Vince. It's so important. You told me that. And I've told a lot of guys that now. You have to get over this. Vince is very intimidating. And he's very scary, like waiting outside his office. You feel like you have to wait to go into the principal. Even to this day, I'm nervous to go in his office. But you have to establish that relationship with him so you can break that wall down of Vince McMahon, the boss, and Chris Jericho, they working together to create a good product. And then if you're really lucky, like Vince, I would consider him to be a friend of mine now. I asked him to go to AC/DC with me last year when they were at the Garden with Axl Rose, and then he ended up tearing his quad, and he never said he would go, but I invited him. And I'm like, what if he wants to go? Like, what am I going to do? Like, do I stand in the seats with Vince and like air guitar with him? Like, what are we going to do if he shows up? Like, are these seats going to be good enough for him? Do I have to get a box now? Like, what do I do? Like, how is he as a guy? But there's a couple times over the years, and it took me a long time to really get to that relationship. I would say that it took me till 2008, 8 years of working for Vince until I lived up to the potential that I think he saw in me, but I never really delivered it to that level. Then I created that kind of the hypocrite suit and tie, very slow talking character, worked with Sean. We had this amazing chemistry. Obviously, Sean, as you know, the best babyface a heel could ever work with. Yeah. And we were perfect match. Great babyface, great heel, great chemistry in the ring and out. And we had this whole big, long 7-month angle. And that's when I think Vince saw me as a legit top guy that you can put the rocket to. And I was world champion 4 times during that run. And ever since then, we became closer and closer from that.
What did you learn? I was watching, God dang, is it Bruce Hart? Mm-hmm. Bruce still with us?
Yeah, Bruce is still alive,
okay,
yeah.
Bruce, it might have been a Bruce interview talking to the dude from Northwest Wrestling, Hannibal. Now, you started over, right? How long were you in that Calgary area?
A long time, man. Like, I trained there with the Hart brothers, even though there was no Hart brothers at camp. Thank God Lance Storm was there. Because first,
and y'all met from day one.
From day one. It's like planes, trains, and automobiles when John Candy, when the train breaks down, he's got that big giant trunk and he's trying to carry it across the plane, and then Steve picks up the one side. That's exactly what happened. I had this big trunk, and we were living in a hotel called the Willingdon in Oaks, Alberta, which is about 30 minutes outside of Calgary. And I had to climb the stairs to get to my room, and I had this big trunk with all my worldly possessions, and Lance, hey, are you here for wrestling school? Yeah, my name's Lance. My name's Chris. You need a hand? Sure. Picked up the one side of my trunk, and that's how I got it upstairs. So day one, first day I showed up was him. With him.
So how long were you there?
I lived in Calgary till about 94. So I was working on and off, but also I've been working full time since 92.
Okay.
Mexico was full time. Then it was Japan got full time, Smoky Mountain, but I still lived in Calgary till 94.
Some time in Germany as well, right?
I did. I went there in 93 for 6 weeks.
Okay, my question to you is you're making those rounds, and then I'd like to talk a little bit about the communication process in Mexico, because I'm not imagining you speak Spanish.
I learned.
Okay.
Yeah.
Smart guy.
Yeah.
What about your early years taught you how to get over? Where did you? I mean, because dude, you're 27 years in now.
Yeah.
When I talk about getting over, I always like to talk about who got over, because I still think it's a lost art.
Yeah,
And I always like to hear how anybody else vocalizes or intellectualizes it.
To finish up the point that we were making before is that I got over in WWE. It was very hard when I first came in because there was a lot of there was a target on my back because there was still the wrestling war was real. WCW and WWE.
Dude, that was a fierce dressing room.
It was.
And when you came in, I mean, I don't know how you felt, but I mean, I saw you. I saw talent. I said, man, this dude's got, you know, he can talk and he can work. I said, you know, I'm on my game.
Yeah. But I also came in as a WCW guy, you know, by myself. I didn't come in with Dean and Eddie and Chris and those guys. I didn't come in. Big Show came in by himself as well, but he's a giant. It's hard to,
Different.
you know, I'm, you know, 5'11", 220 pounds and long blonde hair. There's other guys in the company that have long blonde hair that probably didn't like that aspect of it. And also too, I came in with not a bad attitude, but I came in with some attitude. I wasn't afraid to.
Was it an attitude or a chip on your shoulder?
It turned into a big chip. At the time, I just came in as a heel. So I had no problem. I didn't know that you weren't supposed to talk shit about The Undertaker in a promo or talk bad about Steve Austin in a promo. That's what heels do to baby faces, right? But I learned very quickly that's not what heels do when they first come in. I had no idea. Nobody ever taught me anything about that in WCW. They didn't even tell me how to bump and feed a comeback. I worked WCW 3 years and had no idea what that even meant, as crazy as it sounds right now. Long story short, I eventually got over because I'd been over everywhere I'd ever been to for one reason and one reason only. I knew how to connect with the fans. If you can connect with an audience, whether you make them love you or hate you, you'll always have a job and you'll sell tickets and you'll become valuable. If you can connect with the audience, they'll be excited to see what you do. And the other thing I did in WWE was I knew, okay, I can't win with like, you know, Hunter and DX and, you know, Rocky was always cool and you were in and out and you were onto your own, but you were always cool to me. But what I did was I worked really hard always, but I knew if I could get over with the bullpen, with the mid-level guys, that would bleed up to the top. Bob Holly, you know, those type of guys, JBL, like Bradshaw at the time, you know, working with those type of Rikishi, having great matches night after night with those guys, which is where I was programmed. The word gets around, you know, this guy is not an asshole. You guys are talking shit about him, but he's really good and he's a good guy. That kind of helped to alleviate some of the tension that was there. So that's basically how I got over. I believed in myself. And I connected with the audience.
And how do you establish or communicate to an individual, one of the boys or gals listening? How do you connect with the people?
I don't know. It's almost like saying like, how do you sing like Paul Stan? How do you get over like Steve Austin? How do you throw a football like, you know, I don't even know anything about Brett Favre or whoever's a good quarterback. I don't really know. I think it's something that you have inside of you. It's that charisma, fearlessness. You can't be afraid to, something you can relate to. You can't be afraid to be Stone Cold Steve Austin and put on a little cowboy hat and sing Kumbaya on a frickin' ukulele, out of tune and horrible. Like that was you committing to the character. I committed to the character every time. As a heel, as a babyface, anything I could do to you know, never ever again, for example, start in WCW when I ripped Dave Penzer's tuxedo off, and the next week they made me go back in there with a tuxedo, and I said, I promise I will never, ever, like just over the top, like I got it from Sally Field. You like me. You really like me. And it's like, I don't like you anymore from that. So I'll never, ever do it again. And then you see people with signs.
Right.
And Jimmy Hart taught me. Jimmy was great, man. I love Jimmy Hart. But he told me, he said, you can't make people write signs. I mean, you know, you can plant them, but these weren't planted. You can't force somebody to write Austin 316 or never ever again with 14 pieces of cardboard with one E, one E, one E, one V. You can't. This is buddies. Hey, dude, let's take a ever sign. And that's how you know you're starting to connect.
That's like the ultimate compliment.
It is. And so you have to be
connecting.
Exactly. You have to be fearless, just like you with Austin 360. You took a chance. It might have stuck. It might not have. If not have stuck, something else would have. And I always laugh because I have so many kind of, let's say, hits for catchphrases. If I was in a rock and roll, well, I am, but you know, like a hit with Ayatollah of Rock and Roll, a hit with Raw's Jericho. But there's been some misses. I remember that I thought Razzle Dazzle. That's going to be huge. That'll be the next catch. I got a little razzle dazzle,
yeah.
Razzle dazzle, and died a death. And the other one was Get it, got it, good. And I would say get it, and the crowd would say got it, and then I would say good. I tried it a couple times. It sucked. It stunk. You had one. Do you remember I'll tell you one that you had.
Which one was it?
I'm going to put a little stink on it.
What?
I'm going to put a little stink on it.
Oh, you know.
You went through the phase. That would be your thing you would say every time. Before what? I'm going to put a little stink on it. And then I'm going to put a little stink on it. And just kind of like,
man, when you throw out a turd,
it humbles you.
It's just sinking feelings like, God damn, I can't let them see me. I'm not going to let them see me sweat. But inside, I know this shit ain't working. But you got to try.
But you got to try. And that's the thing. Like, you got to be fearless. The old saying is like, the only failure is not trying. But a lot of people in the business are afraid to try. And also at this point in time aren't given the option to try. And that to me, like when I thought of the idea of the highlight, my initial idea was learning from one of the greatest, I don't even know what you would call him, backstage interviews is Gene Okerlund, right, who could lead you through a backstage promo even if you didn't know what you were doing, right?
Yeah.
That's how I learned how to do promos. I used to go sit in the box. WCW had a box where you would do localized promos. We're coming to Jacksonville. We're coming to, the Odessa, whatever. And I would just sit in there because you're sitting around all day. There's nothing to do. I'll go watch guys do promos. Then I watch Arn Anderson and Ric Flair and, the Mountie or Glacier, whoever's there getting promos. And then maybe one day they'll ask me. And one day Luger didn't show up because he wanted to go to the gym. So what about that guy? He's always sitting in the corner. You want to do a promo? Sure. And I remember it was for, where's the Van Andel Arena? I think it's Kalamazoo. No, Wings calls him. No, it's Grand Rapids or something. One of those Michigan cities. And I had to do a promo. It was rotten. But Gene Okerlund was the guy who was doing the interview and led me through it. And next week they gave me 2, and then they gave me 3, and gave me 4. That's how I learned how to promo. No script, just on your own instincts. And my idea when I started the Highlight was I wanted to be the Gene Okerlund, have guys come out that didn't get promo time and let me do an improv promo. Let's see what they got. That, of course, did not fly with Vince. He wanted it to be an actual promo segment with top-level guys. But my idea was I wanted to see what can people do when they're not being scripted and they don't have handcuffs, I still think they should do that this day at every show. In between main event and Raw, there's a 10-minute period. Send somebody out there. You got 3 minutes, and you don't tell anybody who it is during the day. You just be like, Xavier Woods, go out there for 3 minutes. What am I supposed to talk about? I don't know, and see what they got. And Woods would kill it, but give somebody else, like Heath Slater or Kurt Hawkins or whoever. You would see then who can do a promo and who can connect with the audience. You would get it right like that.
Question before I go between today's locker versus that Attitude Era locker room, or when you came in '99.
It was Attitude Era, yeah.
So one of my big pet peeves is when the announcer backstage, whoever it is, whether it's male or females, talking to the talent, asks talent a question, talent gives the answer. If there's an interrupt, there's an interrupt, but the talent gives the answer, and it's an awkward feeling. And then all of a sudden, it's back to Michael and the guys at the desk, and the camera stays on the interviewer who's got this awkward answer. There's been some intended, you want there to be some heat there, and all of a sudden it's just an awkward reaction to the person that's part of the broadcast team. It'd be like Aaron Andrews not throwing back to the guys calling the game. What are your thoughts on that? Because I think I think whether it's a male or female, they should throw back to the announce team, because I don't think the heat, the point, or anything goes anywhere because I'm so focused on that weird look that the interview has on their face.
And you can't look at the camera, so you're kind of just staring off into the distance.
Yeah, I mean, I don't.
Well, I mean, and I don't have to tell you this, and it's. Pat Patterson said it best. It's like, it's Vince's ice cream shop. And sometimes he likes chocolate, and sometimes he likes vanilla, and sometimes he likes neither one. It's his ice cream store. That's the way Vince wants it. In Vince's mind, that's how he wants it. So you have to work within those parameters. Do I think it's good? Not necessarily. I think the backstage interviewers now, could they be, and I say this respectfully because I know they're just doing what they're told, could they be more robotic? I loved that. I know it's 80s wrestling, as Vince would say, but the Gene Okerlund and Lee Marshall as well, who's passed away since, they were great. They were great at it because they would have some energy, and like Gene would be like, "Oh, what are you talking about? You can't talk to me like that, Bobby Heenan. Oh my God, and they would throw back.
Right.
There's a lack of energy sometimes to the show when you don't let people be themselves. Like, I'm a ham, you're a ham. I will treat you worse than William Shatner if you let me. But even if you don't, there's still a way to captivate, even as that quiet talking heel. If I talk quiet, everyone has to shut up and listen to me. I remember sometimes I do promos like that, and people in the crowd would be like, "We can't hear you," and then I'd go even quieter. Then you better fucking listen, man. And that's like one person captivating a whole arena of people.